This course is presented to you free of charge by TTJ Tech Services of www.ttjtech.biz and by Stir It Up of www.stiritup.com. And remember, stir is spelled with a U, not an I, so that's STURITUP.com. TTJ Tech Services and Stir It Up are pleased to offer this course to you, to the glory of God, and to the benefit of all those who listen. It's Voiceover In and Out, session number 5, and
TTJ Tech.
And before we do get started with the new content today, I want to go for just a moment to Cliff's Corner. We had a chance to talk about Apple accounts and iCloud and everything on Wednesday, and trainer Sarah and I gave our thoughts and everything, and Cliff was unable to unmute, but he did have a couple of points, I think, that he wanted to add about the Apple account. So we want to check in with him. I think he's able to
Stir it up.
All right, thanks, Matt. Sorry about that delay, but yeah, I wanted to touch base on a couple of things. We talked about in the last meeting, or last session, I should say, of Voiceover In and Out. We were talking about iCloud storage, and Matt and I both are Apple guys, and I love Apple products, but sometimes their stuff can be a bit pricey. So I wanted to give people another alternative. Now, you can't back up your phone to this service. You can't, save your apps there and things of that nature. You used to be able to export your apps, but I don't think you can do that anymore. But anyways, I'm a stickler of making sure that you are covered when it comes to your data, whether it's documents, photos, music tracks, if you have your own offline music, things of that nature. And the service that I highly recommend is pCloud. That's P like Paul and the word cloud, just like iCloud, but it's pCloud. And the reason I recommend them is for a few different reasons. They have great pricing. Number one, when you buy their storage, it's one and done. It's not a subscription service, so you don't pay them $10 a month or $40 a month. You buy their storage, and it's yours for life. And they also have a lot of what you call sales around the holidays. Like, I'm pretty sure they got I actually follow them on Facebook, and they claim they got a great feature coming up. They won't tell anybody what it is, but they say they got a feature coming up here that everybody's gonna love. But anyways, back on Labor Day, Memorial Day back in May, they had a sale. So normally their 2 terabytes lifetime plan is $7.99. Well, they had it on sale for 75% off, and I got it for $1.99. So in total, because I bought another 2 terabytes a couple of years ago, I got 4 terabytes with pCloud for life. I never have to pay them again. And again, I can back up my documents, photos, music, and stuff there, and use that service. And I also use, and we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get to different apps, but there's an app that me and Matt both use called Infuse, and you can actually load that up on your Apple TV, put your home movies or any kind of video collections in there, and have them show up in your on your Apple TV and stream them directly. But we'll talk about more of that when we get to it. Like I said, pCloud, they're my second favorite service. I would love to be able to use them full time, but again, you can't back up your phone there. You can't back up your apps there. Your iCloud data can't be stored there. You probably can move your iCloud phone backup if you back it up to your computer and copy it there, but it's not going to do it automatically. So that's with that cloud service. And again, check Black Friday. Oh, and the other thing is they give you the most storage for free. So you start out with 10 gigabytes, and as you refer people, you can refer up to 10 people to get 10 gigabytes for free. 1 gig per referral. So you can actually get 20 gigabytes for free. And then after that, you pay for the storage of, and I think they do actually have monthly subscriptions, but I go with the lifetime plan because it just makes more sense. The other thing that I wanted to touch on is the now called iCloud account thing. It used to be called iCloud services. Now it's your name and iCloud. Well, Matt touched on Apple designed it to be one Apple ID per person. Now, Trainer Cliff is always difficult and he always tries to do things a little different. So that's not to say that you can't share an Apple ID because I did it for years with my now ex-wife. Because Apple allows you to have a main Apple ID but 3 aliases. So what we did for lots of years is we had one main Apple ID, or we had the main Apple ID, but we each had our aliases, and I would turn hers off on my devices, and she would turn mine off on her devices, and it worked. So, I mean, you can share an Apple ID, and that's another way to, share your purchases and things of that nature. I mean, if you don't mind having your email come to her email and stuff like that, because I had, an alias, she had an alias. I had mine going to a folder, and she didn't sort her mail, but I knew what was mine and what was hers, so I didn't worry about it. But again, Apple has designed it so everybody has their own Apple ID, but you can share it that way if you're a couple or a roommate, or you just want to make things easier and only buy things once. I mean, family sharing will do that, but if you are in a relationship, or you just are friends with somebody and you just say, hey, let's get one main Apple ID and then we can each have our own alias, that will work. So
now, one question I have to piggyback off of that, Cliff, because there was one hurdle that I found that I didn't ever really overcome when my parents used to share, and I really never tried that hard because I eventually convinced them to start using separate Apple IDs, so it didn't matter, and I never looked into it again. Whenever I look at like my Find My settings and, you can share your location, I get the impression you can only share your location from one device at a time. So in other words, my iPhone is what broadcasts my location. And even if my iPads are at home, it's going to show where I'm at based on where my iPhone is. Now, if you have two different people sharing an Apple ID or Apple account, excuse me, now we use the correct term there, is there any workaround for that, or is that going to be one limitation that you would not be able to overcome by sharing an Apple account?
It seemed to do it anyway. I mean, it would say you're sharing your Apple ID from this device, but on my device, because I had multiple devices, as you know, but on both my iPhone and iPad, it would both share the location, and her location would be shared at the same time too. So it may say that, but it ultimately does share the location from all the different devices, but it identifies from what the name of that device is.
The people versus the device, I guess, because you could look under devices and see all of them. So
correct.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing. So, as you can see from all this, there's lots of ways to do things. And we try to give you these little advanced tidbits along the way. Those were great tidbits. The P Cloud is an additional storage. He uses that to supplement his iCloud. We're both still using iCloud storage as well. But when we learn later about the Files app in this course, you're going to see how those integrate so nicely with all of those things as well. The other thing I want to quickly just mention, because I don't think I gave it a lot of airtime, if any, last week, but we talked about all these different things that are shared. We talked about all these different things that are synced across devices, and all these things that are backed up. And later on in the course, we'll learn about backups versus what's just already there in iCloud, because a lot of people are under the mistaken impression that if they don't restore from a backup, they will lose their contacts, their calendars, their photos, and that's simply not true, as long as your other settings are correct, your other iCloud settings. So we'll learn more about that in a session yet to come. But one thing I did just want to point out is that another incorrect impression that some people get is that iCloud is responsible for syncing all of their email. Now, the only way that's true is if you use an iCloud.com email address. If you use, for example, a gmail.com email address, then your emails actually have nothing to do with iCloud. Your emails are being synced by the Google Cloud system. Remember, I told you last week, all the big players have their own. A lot of them don't brand it so strongly, and there's not as many features, right? We never really hear G Cloud for Google, or, I don't know what Yahoo would call theirs, but you get the idea, right? We don't hear those terms, but yet they exist. So there is a Google Cloud. And if you are using Gmail, it's Google that syncs your Google email. Okay. And if you use a Comcast.net or, a Yahoo or an Outlook, it's all their own servers that are in charge of that. So your iCloud settings are apart from that and separate from that. I just wanted to point that out because I've had over the years a few customers and students here and there who, I didn't really make that clear enough and that we were a little bit confused about it. So I just wanted to put that in there as well.
iCloud, it works, and the other ones do too, but ultimately they're not that accessible.
Not as good as iCloud.
No, not even close. Especially Google. I'm not trying to poke at anybody, but when it comes to sharing files or folders, it's we're gonna struggle. So just be mindful of that when you decide that you want to sign up for or what is it called? It ain't Google, whatever, Google Drive. It has, they actually, and I lied. I said that Google Drive or pCloud had the most free storage. I think Google, what is it called? I think Google Drive gives you 15 free gigabytes. So, but ultimately, they don't give you a way to earn free storage. So, just do your research when you're signing up for a service. And again, like Matt said, I use pCloud to supplement my iCloud. So everything that's in my iCloud is actually backed up on my pCloud because you never know. Technology is not perfect, and anything can happen.
Since Google was mentioned, is that I was looking through security. I was, there were some of my passwords were needed to be changed, but I found a place where I could find out that that Safari Apple had prevented all these I guess data grabs, and there were 96 of them on Google, so that was the most of them.
It's the Safari privacy report, which you have if you close all your other tabs and so forth on their Apple Start page. And then also, I think under settings and privacy, you can get different privacy reports too. But yeah, you can actually see what they've blocked and how many things they've blocked. And there is so much going on in the background. People just think, well, because I don't use Norton products or I don't use McAfee or whatever, that I don't have an antivirus. Well, that's not really true. There is stuff that's happening in the background that you and I have no idea about. And I only know a little bit of it, from things that I've read and people I've talked to who are way more knowledgeable in those areas than I am. And they are doing that stuff in the background. And it is, again, we say this all the time for our longtime students. There's no company that is as secure or as privacy focused as what Apple is. We're going to talk about we're going to explore our very first app, a couple of apps today. But even before we do that, we need to talk about something else that we've been building up to. We talked about Apple accounts. We talked about a little bit about Spotlight and about, SIRI. And we are going to be today exploring the Contacts app a little bit and the Contacts part of the phone app, among other things. But in order for us, or I should say, before we do that, we need to just explore a little bit about contact cards and how important it is that each of you have a proper contact card for yourself. Now, things are going to get even better if you have a proper contact card for all of your family, friends, and coworkers as well. But it starts with having a proper contact card for yourself. And I remember the days when we were new to all of this, right? And prior to the existence of the iPhone, I had a Parrot VoiceMate. Some of you remember those. And even before that, I had Braille mates and Braille and Speak, Braille lights. I was never a big fan, not to disparage anything. Just for me, I was not a big fan of the Braille and Speak or the Braille light. But I really did like the Braille Mate. For those of you who remember the telesensory Braille Mate from Mountain View, California, and that device had a lot of problems over the years. I had it in for repair multiple times, but when it worked, it was my favorite device at that time. Of course, what it could do obviously pales in comparison to anything we have today, and part of that is contact management, and that was one of the things that all those devices tried to do, and they did it to some degree, but we never really got the full extent of it. Email addresses and web addresses were new, so a lot of those devices didn't even have fields for them. You could use the memo field if you wanted to, but it was just really, really basic contact management, right? Like one phone number, one address, and I guess that's what a lot of people had, unless you knew their work phone and stuff too. But, we got cell phones in the mid to late 90s, some in the early 90s. Actually, I guess, yeah. And so, these things started to change. But here's what we did. We always put, and nobody ever, showed me differently. I never looked at a physical phone book, so I didn't even think about it. But what we did was we'd put a contact name in there, and we'd put, Sarah Potok. We just put it all together, or Cliff Miller, or for family members, I would do stuff like put mom and dad, and that was the name of the contact. Well, that's a really, really great example, to borrow a line from a movie, paraphrase a little, but that's a really great example of a horrible idea. It really is going to cause major problems when you are attempting to work with your contacts and so forth. So thankfully, praise God, we have so many more options now in our contacts. We have a field for first name and last name. We have different types of phone numbers we can designate, and you can have more than one phone number associated with a contact. And we do have fields for web address and email address and home address, work address, all these different things. But it's still important that we input the data in the proper way. So what is a proper contact card? Well, first of all, a proper contact card, if you're taking notes now, pay attention to this, okay? A proper contact card starts out with a first and a last name. And just like the Apple accounts that we talked about, a proper contact card is going to be one contact card per person. I don't care if they live together, they have the same last name, they're married, they have the same phone number even. My mom and dad have a home phone. So do we. We have a business and a home phone here. We still have a landline. Then we have our iPhones, but our home number is the same. Our last name is the same, our physical address. But my wife and kids and I, but you want to put that in as one contact per person. The moment you stop doing that, you're going to start to run into trouble, because when you look for somebody's contact, it's going to be a lot harder to find. So my mom has the same address as my dad, but we still have a separate contact for each of them. One is his first name and his last name. One is her first name and this, obviously her last name. But what we do then is we start filling in as much information as we can. So again, proper contact card starts out with a first name and a last name, one card per person. And then we fill in as much as we possibly can know, right? We choose the correct kind of phone when we pick, and I'll demonstrate this. I'll show you where all of this is at, right? But we pick home phone, we pick mobile or iPhone, we pick other, we pick work phone, all these kinds of things. And then the same with the email addresses, the websites, the physical address. And then if you know more information than that, then you can really start to have some fun, right? You can put related names. How are they related to you? Wife, husband, son, daughter, mother, father, sister, brother, whatever. You can put nicknames for those people. You can put their birthdays and their anniversaries, different important dates, so that in the end, what I'm able to do, is I can do something like this. Oh, I don't really, I technically shouldn't be demonstrating that lady to you for about another week, because we still are on a beta version, and I have, NDR, but I can say something. I know I can use my HomePod because that is unchanged. So that's a good idea. All right. So I'll walk over here so you can hear that a little bit better. Praise God. I wanted to demonstrate this, but I thought I don't want to violate that NDR. I try not to. not knowingly anyway. Siri, when is my daughter's birthday? Did she hear me? And why not? Maybe because my other device is trying to respond. Hey, Siri.
Uh-huh.
When is my daughter's birthday?
Sorry, I can't get that info for
Okay.
you here.
Maybe she can't do that on there. I wonder if my watch can do it. I think the watch can. Let me try that one. Monday alert. When is my daughter's birthday? Whoops, I know. Okay. When is my daughter's birthday?
Kylie Valbrecht's birthday is 290 days away on August 7th.
Okay, there you go. So you're able to hear that on the watch. It said who it was. It said when her birthday is, and it said even that was 290 days away. But the point is, it knew who my daughter is, first of all. And I can do that on the HomePod. Like if I say text my daughter or something, it will do those things. But I can also then ask the birthday, anniversary. It knows that information. Likewise, if I'm out and about somewhere and I want directions to home, I can say, take me home. The reason SIRI can do all of these things is because she knows that information through the contact card and other means that we use to clue her in on different things. And if you have a proper contact card for each person, you'll be able to do that too. My wife, my husband, my son, my daughter, you can use these types of terms and it knows who you're talking about. It knows the information, your birthday, your anniversary, all these kinds of things. And so this again requires the use of proper contact cards for everybody. And, even if everything else were the same, right, I would have had a problem if I had one contact card that was shared between, let's say, my son and my daughter, because then their birthday would not really be the same, but, you wouldn't be able to designate two different birthdays. So it's important that you do this. And I recommend really once we show you how, if you've never done it before, we're about to show you how. I really recommend that you start out by making sure that your contact card is correct. And then you can even go into your SIRI settings and you can designate that is you. So it knows who you are. And then in addition to that, you can look at your other contacts and you can make adjustments where you need to. And for some of you, this may be not a one-day project, right? You got hundreds of contacts, you take a look through them over time and clean them up. But I would like to show you, first of all, what this looks like when you're adding contacts. Now, there are two different ways on an iPhone to add and work with contacts. Many of you may not realize that you actually have a separate contacts app on your iPhone. It is typically by default, unless you've moved it around, it's often in a folder, either called utilities or extras. And then I think I've moved mine. Did I move mine out of the folder? I don't remember, but that is especially important if you try to work with contacts on a device that's not an iPhone. Let's say an iPad or a Mac. You want to edit your contacts on there and you say, well, there's no phone app on an iPad. Well, there is a contacts app, and that contacts app exists on all of your devices. So you don't have to worry and you don't have to think that there's no contacts app, because there actually is a separate contacts app. Having said that, we're going to use the phone app today because the phone app has a contacts tab. And once you're inside that contacts tab, it looks really just like the contacts app, except it has the other phone stuff too at the bottom. So the reason we're going to use that is because it's going to give us a chance to teach our first app type. You remember a while ago, we talked about predictable patterns and how you can get used to the patterns that different apps are set up. And there's a back button a lot of times at the upper left and these sorts of things, right? Those fundamentals, remember? Well, today we're going to learn our first official. We've already covered some, but we're going to learn our first official predictable pattern here. And that is a tabbed app, an app that has a tab bar across the bottom of the screen. Now, this is especially important on the iPhone. You get into the iPad, there are some tab bars on occasion, but a lot of them now are being replaced with sidebars. So that's like a vertical bar that goes along the left side of the iPad. And some of them even have like a floating tab bar that appears near the top of the screen. For you iPad users, if you've updated to version 18, you'll probably notice that your App Store has this sort of interface across the top of the screen. And there are others too, the clock app and so on. And then again, sidebars as well. And some of them even have a combination of a floating tab bar and a sidebar to make things even easier. So the iPad has, some other things. And if you take our iPad course this spring, we'll teach you all of that, how to identify it and how to work with it. And the Mac a lot of times has a toolbar and a sidebar and things like that, unless you're, Trainer Cliff, the keyboard king, who just has a keyboard command for everything, and he can avoid most times those sidebars. But that isn't really the point. The point is each of these has an interface and a pattern that you can get used to. And on the iPhone, it's very, very big on tabbed apps. Not all apps are tabbed apps, but the phone app is a great example of one that is. So what you have at the very bottom of the screen, when I open my phone app in a moment, you're going to hear that I have a tab bar across the bottom. There will be 5 tabs on that tab bar. From left to right, they're going to be favorites, recents, contacts, keypad, and voicemail. And that's pretty self-explanatory, right? Any of those that we want to double tap on, it will open that particular tab. It will put us in. It'll select that particular tab. And then the rest of the screen adjusts accordingly to display the contents of that particular tab. So if I double tap on recents, I'm going to see all my recent calls. And if I double tap on keypad, I'm going to get my dial pad, and so forth. So eventually here, we'll double tap on contacts. I might already be in that, but we'll take a look. So allow me to unlock my phone, and we're going to turn up the volume, and we're going to use the phone app. I think I have a badge, a bunch of missed calls and voicemails that, and I might have, I don't know, I guess probably I checked some of them, and, there's still a badge. Remember what a badge is. It indicates that there's some sort of action or missed notification. And so if you have a badge of 5 on your phone app, that means there might be 5 voicemails or 5 missed calls. All right, so I've got my volume up here, and at the bottom left, we're going to touch this tab bar. All right, so I'll touch my tab bar here.
Tab bar, favorites, tab, 1 of 5.
I touched the leftmost tab. First, you heard it say tab bar because I moved to that area. It announced favorites, and it said that it was tab 1 of 5. I can swipe to the right to go to the next tab.
Recents, 3 items, tab, 2 of 5.
Okay, and recents, it says there's 3 items, so apparently there's 3 missed calls or something I need to look at there.
Selected, contacts, tab, 3 of 5.
Notice that it tells me contacts is already selected. That's what I suspect, because I really spend most of my time in the contacts tab of the phone app. But I do have 2 more if I go to the right.
Keypad, voicemail.
And of course, I can swipe back to the left as well.
Keypad, selected, contacts.
To go back to the previous tab. I also kind of can do this by touch because I've learned over time, right? So again, that muscle memory, and I really do believe that it is a God-given talent, but I also think you can practice this and hone this skill. And the muscle memory allows me, if I want to tap on, for example, the keypad, I probably can land pretty close.
Keypad.
Okay, there it was. Praise God. That was number 4. I kind of knew where to expect that to be. And notice that if I double tap on any of those tabs,
selected, keypad, tab,
it selects them. And now the rest of the screen has in this case, the keypad.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Notice the
TUV.
Tells me the 8 has the TUV. So I can dial any of these with whatever typing method I have chosen. You remember I use the direct touch typing mode. So if I just tap on these keys, they will dial. And, that's how we used to make calls before we had anything that we could really access with our contacts in it, right? But now we can. Now we can access our contacts. So I'm going to go back to the contacts tab.
Tab bar, contacts, selected, contacts, tab, 3 of 5.
And again, the aim of this course is not to teach every feature of every app. That would be absolutely impossible. We don't even know them all. We're all works in progress, and also it would take far too long. The idea is to teach voiceover, but learn a thing or two about the apps while we do it. And so just very briefly, I think self-explanatory, you can save your your most important people to the favorites tab, and you can call them directly. For those of you who are shortcuts users, there's even a way now to put a person's contact as a shortcut right on your home screen. Like I have an icon for my wife, my son, and my daughter. I can literally just double tap on their name and it calls their iPhones. That's a little more advanced, but you can do that. But I have, this is favorite. I don't even know that I have anything in favorites because I can just use, who, SIRI, or I can use the shortcuts. Let's see. Yeah, I don't even have anything. I mean, you could do it. Here's the add button. But listen, notice that I don't even have them in there because I just use the other thing. So anyway, that's favorites. Recents, obviously, self-explanatory. And when you're in recents, you can filter your calls by the, well, let me just show you. You can...
tab bar, recents.
So up at the top left now, where we would start exploring,
edit button.
There's an edit button. You're going to find that a lot of times there's an edit button at the top, either the left or the right. This allows us to do what we call multi-select. Like you might want to select several non-contiguous items. Okay, maybe there's 7 different calls here I want to select and then delete all of them simultaneously, those kinds of things. So you can go into edit. If you go to the right,
selected all button, 1 of 2.
And that you notice that's 1 of 2. 2 of 2 is going to be the missed
button.
So that means I can filter this list by all calls or just the missed calls. Right now it's set to all incoming or not even incoming, just all calls, incoming or outgoing, because this is recents, right? So it's all my recent calls. So if I swipe to the right,
recents heading.
Now I have the, I can search. There's a search button. But now you can see
Rite Aid Pharmacy, Fred Baca, Cliff Antonio, Kathy.
And any of these that I want to access, if I want to call them back, I double tap it. I also have rotor options. We know what the rotor is now, right? You're starting to see these fundamentals. And look at the rotor.
Delete, block and report junk, more info, activate, default.
So you had 4 options there. And notice that I could have double tapped any one of those that I wanted. Some people ask, well, how do you add a recent caller to your contacts? Well, that's what you do. You use the rotor until you hear more info and you double tap, and then you'll get a screen that has a bunch of different options, one of which is to create a new contact, probably another one to add an existing contact. I haven't done that in a while from recents, but I think it has both options right in there. And, you can play with that on your own time. I want to get you to the place where you're comfortable exploring, which reminds me, by the way, very quickly, that our very first experience lab is going to be this Wednesday. We're very excited about that, the first of many. And that means nothing different for you as far as coming. You just come at the usual time with the same link, but we're going to have some fun working together on things. So the only thing I would caution you, if you can come on a different device other than your iPhone, that would be great. If not, it's okay. It's not a deal breaker. But if, you have an iPad, a Mac, one of these other devices, you can come in so that you can be using your iPhone more freely and so that we can hear it if we need to assist you. But pay attention to the stuff we're doing today, because our experience lab might possibly have a thing or two to do with contacts and some of the other things we teach today. So this is the recents tab. I want to go back to what we started talking about, which is the contacts tab, number 3.
Tab bar, contacts, selected.
And
contacts.
we double tap that. Now, again, if you go to the upper left, predictable patterns, notice the upper left
lists, back button
has a back button right now. And that's very common. The reason that I have a back button is because I am inside of a list called all contacts. You can create additional lists. For example, you can create a list of just your family members, your work contacts, maybe a list of contacts for, you're working on some kind of maybe it's a project at work or a retirement dinner party, or maybe it's your vacation group or something. You can create different lists. This is not to be confused with message groups in the Messages app, which we'll talk about later. These are lists of contacts, but it is very useful. And that's why I have a back button, because I'm inside of my all contacts list.
Add button, iCloud, search.
And it said iCloud. That's my iCloud contacts. Now, what's at the top right? If we want to get into patterns here, let's look at the top right.
Add button.
There's an add button. That's extremely common not always, sometimes it's going to be at the bottom right, but in many, many apps, there is an add button at the upper right. It's either add or it's compose or it's new, something like that. Visually, maybe it's a plus symbol or a pencil if it's a writing, type of thing. So very often we have these add buttons at the top right. If we were to go back, because very often we have back buttons at the top left, if we were to go back here, that would take us
iCloud, heading, add, lists, back button, lists, edit, button.
Now you'll notice
Edit.
at the top left, whoops, excuse me there. Now the phone there with the iPad. With the phone, the upper left is now you heard an edit button. Listen to that again. If I tap the upper left now,
iCloud, button,
a little higher
lists, heading,
and a little higher.
lists,
See,
add list,
I can
button,
add a list,
edit,
but off to the top left there,
edit,
as far left as we can go, there's an edit button. And doesn't that sound familiar? Because didn't we see an edit button in our recents in that same way? So you have an edit button. And what does it do here? Well, it lets us edit and remove lists that we might want to. And you notice at the upper right is the add list button. So if I want to add an entirely new list for contacts,
add list, button,
it's at the upper right. And then the middle of my screen has my list.
lists, heading, iCloud, button, expanded.
Now,
Double tap to collapse.
that's expanded, right? It's the iCloud account, which is really the only account that I use. Some people may have others. Not going to get into that today. We might need to get into it sometime, but for right now, that's all I have. But it's expanded. I
actually think it's
that.
important to mention right now because we have experienced over the last couple of years of people wondering why their Gmail contacts are on their iPad but not on their phone, or vice versa, or they turned off their iCloud by accident, so all their contacts is not syncing across their devices. And I mean, you're right here in contact, so I think this is a good point to point out that it doesn't matter what service you use, whether it's iCloud, Gmail, Microsoft, whatever service you choose to use, you need to make sure in settings, apps, contacts, that service is your primary. So when you save a contact or when you export your contacts, that service is the one that is defaulting to, not that you have a Gmail, a Yahoo, a AT&T, a Comcast, a Verizon, a T-Mobile, whatever the case may be. If you're going to have all those services and save contacts in different places, you need to make sure that all them services are turned on all your devices. Otherwise, you're going to have different contacts on different devices and wondering why you can't see the other ones that you thought you saved and restored from a backup, and it's not there.
And I think it's true that it's one of the most common issues that we've had. If there were to be a single recurring issue that we've had multiple students come to us with the same question, it is that it's my contacts or my calendars or whatever are not syncing. Well, they actually are, but you don't have the same thing set on both accounts, or because what happens is that every kind of account, iCloud, Google, Microsoft, all these different kinds of accounts, not only are they email accounts, but they also can handle contacts, calendars, and notes, and sometimes reminders and so forth as well. And if what our general rule of thumb is, and of course there's no right or wrong, it's personal preference, but our general rule of thumb is if you're an Apple user, use only the iCloud account unless you absolutely need to use something else. And I'll explain that in a moment. But in general, we say use only the iCloud account. If you're adding your email from Gmail and stuff, disable the other parts of the Gmail account on your phone. The calendars, that doesn't mean that they're permanently going away. It just means your phone will not use those. And the reason we say this, yes, I do think that iCloud is the best around. Yes, I do think it's better than all the other ones. I've never tried to deny that I'm biased. I think the bias is well earned by Apple, but it is nonetheless, I am an Apple fanboy. I won't deny that. But I also think it just is a common sense sort of thing, right? If you were an Android user, I would tell you, I'd tell you to switch to Apple, but that's beside the point. If you're an Android user, I would tell you, use Google for your contacts. Why would you use iCloud with a Google device for your primary stuff. Maybe you use it for something else, but use Google for your contacts if you have a Google device. Use Apple for your contacts, calendars, notes if you have an Apple device. And that keeps things easy and simple. And then there are times when certain people need to have other accounts as well. And that might come down to maybe your work requires you to use Google. And so you have to have your Google Calendar on there, and you still want it to come into your regular Apple Calendar app. So then you have to have calendars enabled for Google. Otherwise, that's not going to work. Or maybe you're someone who used to use Android. And so you have, 4,000 contact cards already uploaded to Gmail. And instead of having to try to export them, move them, you're certainly not going to recreate them. I would say to you, just leave Google enabled for contacts on your phone and use it with the contacts app. The Apple, there's no reason you can't do it. So there are cases, there are exceptions. But the thing about that is if you're going to start using multiple accounts, you really need to understand the process. We're happy to help teach it to you. But, whether it's us or somebody else, you really need to understand what you're doing when you're working with multiple accounts so that you don't run into the situation that so many of our students and customers have, which is that they don't understand why things are not syncing across the board. And it's always the first question I ask: are you using more than one type of account for your calendars or your contacts or whatever it is they, think they're having a problem with? And the answer is always yes. And then we always figure out that, something isn't the same on both devices. In one case, it's defaulting to the Apple Calendar, and in the other device, it's defaulting to the Google. Or in one device, they didn't add Google at all, so they don't have the calendars on there. So these are just things that will make it complicated if you're not aware of how to work with them. And I would say to you, like I said before, just get some training on it, and then you'll be able to do it. So in my case here, I have the iCloud account, which is the only one I use for contacts, and it's expanded. And that's why it says
button expanded. Double tap to collapse. Actions available.
Actions available means there's rotor options, but also I can double tap this to collapse it. If I had other accounts and I wanted to look at those instead, I don't have to go through all my iCloud ones. I can collapse this, but I'm going to leave it expanded and swipe to the right.
All iCloud 469 button.
All iCloud. That's what I was in before. That's my main list of contacts, and it says that I have 469 contact cards. If I go to the right,
family 3 button.
Family, my 3 family members, my wife and my kids are in there.
TTJ 7 button.
Okay, that's a TTJ one, but then I have another
TTJ Gold members.
And so these are my gold members that have a special purchase paid plan that they subscribe to. And sometimes I have to send them things, and that's there. And so I can email just that list. And then, so, we have all. So again, I'm going to go back into all iCloud. And you'll notice now that at the upper left is the back button to go back to lists. So this is the way this app is laid out. At the top right, remember what we have there. The add button where we can add our contacts. And I'm going to show you that in just a second. We also have in this app, along the right-hand side, a section index. I feel like we covered this already in something, but I want to make sure we cover it again. A lot of apps that use alphabetical lists have a section index. And what it looks like to the sighted users is it looks like a little indicator that has the letters of the alphabet, and they can tap on the letter that they need to tap on. For us, we tap on it to bring focus to it, and then we swipe down to go to the next letter or swipe up to go to the previous one. So if I'm looking for a contact whose name starts with the letter J, and then we get into also how these are sorted. So my contacts are sorted by last name. So if what I'm looking for is a last name that starts with a certain letter, but it also will display them as first name and then last name, if that makes any sense. Let me say it again. If I am looking, for example, for Sarah, her last name starts with a P. If I'm looking for Cliff, his last name starts with an M. So I'm going to look under the M's for Cliff or the P for Sarah to find that person by their last name. But then it's going to display it as the first name and then the last. Cliff Miller, Sarah Poach. It's not going to display it as Potok Sarah. Now, I think if you still have a traditional phone book, those things they used to have years ago, I think it actually displayed the last name first. And my mom still prefers it that way. Like, she has sorted her contacts by last name, but she's also made it so that they're displayed with the last name first. That I find that to be confusing, but that's how she prefers it. She's used to that. You can go into your settings and you can customize that. But the section index then is going to take you to any letter that you want. So if I want to find Cliff, I'm going to go to the M's because his last name is Miller. And I also have to remember that sometimes there might be businesses that start with the letter M. So they're going to be in there too. So let's use my section index along the right-hand side of the screen.
Section index adjustable.
And I'll start.
Swipe up or down with one finger.
Start swiping down.
Cap B, Cap C, Cap D, Cap J, Cap L, Cap M. Selected.
Now I will sort of tap the upper middle of the screen.
Limpy Malif, Mandy Jup, Mike, MC, Chris, Mike, Tara McMara.
And eventually I'll get to
Bobby, Corey, Monica, Noah, Alvin, K, Mike, Jeff Miller, Cliff Antonio Miller Sr.
And there he is. And I can double tap on him to display his contact card. So you can see how easy it is to move through your contacts. We also can use some gestures that we've already learned, like the 3-finger swipe up or down. If we swipe up with 3 fingers repeatedly, it's going to take us further down into our list of alphabetically sorted contacts. And if we 3-finger swipe, I think I said that wrong. If we 3-finger swipe up, like away from us, that's going to take us further down into the list of alphabetically sorted contacts, later letters of the alphabet. If we bring our fingers down, we swipe 3 fingers down, that's going to bring us back up closer to the top of the list. Now, we still have to look at how to add a contact, and that's at the top right.
Add button.
We double tap it.
Text field is edit first name. Text field is editing first name. Character mode. Insertion point at start.
So the rotor's in character mode. We just heard that. It says it's editing already. We're in the first name field. Just let's swipe to the left and make sure we see what else is there first.
Add photo button.
All right. Just to the
black text above a gray circle with a white border. New contact.
So just to the left of the first name edit field is an add photo button. You can put a photo in there for your contacts, but also they can share their photo with you. And that's another thing we'll learn about a little bit later, but they can definitely share, if they have a contact photo, that can become your photo for them as well. And then
done, dimmed button.
There's a done button to the left, and even more to the left.
New contact, heading, cancel button.
Is the cancel button if we change our mind and we don't really want to enter this contact. Notice that the done button right now that we heard, which is actually at the top right of the screen, if you really want to know.
Done, dimmed button.
Cancels at the upper left, right? Sound familiar? But notice that the done button is grayed out. VoiceOver says dimmed. Well, that's because we haven't entered a thing in this yet, so there's nothing to save, right? We haven't typed anybody's name. So if I want to start typing first name, I will just say the first name is Tess. Whoops. Okay. So I've typed in there. Now, here's what I have to let you know. We can read back if we want to with the rotor, just like anything else. Backwards, okay? So tap up here.
Add photo. First name. Text field is editing. Test. Character mode. Insertion point at start.
If we swipe to the right.
Clear text button.
There's a clear text button. A lot of edit fields will have those just to the right. And that's a way of immediately deleting everything we typed in there instead of having to delete it character by character or trying to select multiple words and stuff. If you just know you really want to clear the whole edit field, a lot of edit fields have that clear text button to the right of them, especially in situations like this. Let's go to the right again.
Last name, text field.
Double tap.
To edit.
Double tap to edit.
Insertion point at end.
And what's our last name of our test contact? We're going to call him Test. We're going to call him Test Subject. So his last name.
Phone. At company, clear text, last name, text field is editing, subject.
Now, of course, I was swiping to the left there in case you didn't realize that to get back to that edit field. Notice to the right of it is the clear text field now. To the left is not.
First name, test, text field.
And that's because
double tap to edit.
We're not in that edit field anymore. We're not in the first name edit field. If I want to clear it, I have to double tap in it first, then the clear text button will be there. But notice to the right,
Last name. Text field is editing. Subject.
that one said is editing instead of double tap to edit. And to its right is the clear text button. Now, if we move to the right again,
Company. Text field.
so
Double tap to edit.
we can put a company name in here. And if that person happens to work for a company, we can easily find that company. And that's a good way to do if you have, a company that you work with, but you also have a contact at that company, while you can use either one with SIRI, and that becomes very useful as well.
Add phone button.
Okay, there's a button here then to the right that's called add phone. This is how you will begin adding your phone numbers for this person. So if I double tap on add phone, it's going to put a new phone field in here.
Add text field is editing. Phone. Character mode. Insertion point at start.
And we can immediately start typing a phone number. But I want to show you, if you swipe to the left of this edit field that you're now in,
Mobile button.
we get
Activate to choose type. Swipe up or down to select a custom action, then double tap to activate.
Okay, we get to see the type of phone number that we are inserting. And if I don't want this one, right now it says mobile. So that's how it's going to be identified. But if I double tap on that button,
text field is edited.
Where it says mobile, now I got a cancel button. If I swipe to the right, I'm going to have all these different choices.
Label, heading,
they call it label.
edit button.
We can edit to add different labels or delete some of these or perhaps reorder them. I don't honestly even know.
Search field.
We can search for some.
Dictate selected. Mobile.
Notice that mobile is the first one.
Home. Work. School. iPhone. Apple Watch. Main. Home fax. Work fax. Pager. Other. Add custom label.
Notice all these different choices. And there's even add custom label. And I've got some. If we keep going to the right.
Emergency. Work mobile. Enable FVN plus.
Okay.
Disable.
And that
Do not call.
there's some of these even here, like outgoing, do not call. I don't think I put some of those in there, those FVM. Those are labels that maybe different apps added. I think the emergency one came from a security system. And they're just different custom labels, but you can make your own is the point there, or pick one of these existing ones. So maybe this is this person's home number. So I would double tap.
Home. First name, test. Last name, subject, company. Text field, remove, null. Home button.
Notice it's
Activate to choose type. Actions available.
it's now changed to home instead of mobile, and just to its right.
Text field is editing. Phone. Character mode.
And there's the
Start.
phone number field, so I can type a phone number now.
1, 4, 5. Insertion point. That's insertion 1, 2.
So I just put
Company. Home. Text field is editing. 814 555-1212.
Okay. a 10-digit phone number, and I didn't do any dialing strings or anything like that. We're not going to get into that just yet, but you could do that. But this is their home number, and now if I go to the right,
Clear text.
we can clear it out of there again.
Add phone button.
And there's another add phone button. And that is because maybe I want to add multiple phone numbers, a work phone, an iPhone, a school phone, all these different options, right? So we can keep adding phone numbers. So there's another add phone button now if I want to have a second phone field. We also, if we keep going to the right,
Remove. No. Home. Text. Clear text. Add phone button. Add email button.
we can add email. And if we double tap on that, it's going to put a new email field in there for us. And again, just to its left will be the label. We can pick what kind of email it is. So let's do that.
Add text field is editing. Email. Home button.
If I go to the left, it says home.
Activate to choose. Text field is edited. Cancel. Label. Heading. Edit. Button. Search. Dictate. Selected. Home. Work. School. iCloud. Other. Add custom label.
Okay. So let's say it's their work email.
iCloud. School. Work.
Notice.
Add photo. Explore image. Add to list. Button. Add verification.
All right. So we'll go back up here a little bit. Notice that now it's got the work email instead of the home. Listen.
Button. Text field is editing. Email. Insertion point at start.
And it's ready for me to type already. But notice that now it says work
is editing.
instead of home. Now, if we continue to go to the right,
Add email button.
There's another add email button. We can have more than one email field. And let's just look at what else there is.
Add pronouns button.
Okay, we can add pronouns.
Ringtone
We can
default.
So we can add a custom ringtone here. And to the right of that,
Text tone default.
we can add a custom text tone. Right now it says they are default, but if I want to choose a specific ringtone or text tone for this person, I can do that. Also, within those ringtone and text tone settings is the ability to turn on emergency bypass for this contact. When emergency bypass is turned on for the ringtone or the text tone or both, it means that whenever they text you or call you, you will always hear the sound and always get the message or the phone call. And that is including regardless of whether you have a do not disturb or another focus mode, whether you're, even if you have your phone set to silent, the sound is muted, that's still going to come through for those people that are set to emergency bypass. So most people, you would do this, for close family members, maybe for your security system company, if you have an alarm monitoring system, right? Because then they can reach you. So different reasons to do this, and of course, different reasons not to, just depending on the circumstances. I have my parents in the emergency bypass, so I have to make sure I tell them if I'm doing something where it really matters. I mean, they know I'm at church on Sundays, so they, but maybe I'm out somewhere else doing something where I have my phone connected to a sound system, I'm singing or I'm preaching or something. I say to them, make sure you don't call me unless you really need to during this time, because it's going to ring no matter what. And not only is it going to ring, it's not just going to vibrate, but everybody's going to hear the ringtone or the text tone. And since I use voiceover, everybody would hear the message as well, unless my phone were locked. So, this is a really, really extreme version of override for do not disturb. It's a really aggressive method that gets through basically no matter what, unless your phone is off or in airplane mode. But it's a good feature to know about and to have as an option. So that emergency bypass feature is available within each of those ringtone or text tone choices if you were to double tap on one of those buttons there. And that's a little side trip, because we get into more of that when we teach focus modes and notification stuff. But really, that is still useful. But again, I can pick a ringtone if I want a custom ringtone or text tone for this person. Let's see what else there is. Go to the right again.
Add URL button.
So that's where you would add a website, right? You add URL, and then again, you can choose what kind of website it is, home, work, whatever.
Add address button.
Here's where we can add physical addresses. Again, you can have more than one. That's going to put several fields in there. By the way, that'll put your home address, it'll put like a, street name and street number. It'll put city, state, zip, all those different things.
Add birthday button.
All right. That's where you can add a person's birthday.
Add date button.
Add another important date like an anniversary.
Add related name button.
Add related names. So again, we're specifying how they're related to somebody or to you.
Add social profile button.
All kinds of social profiles we can choose once we add this. So the first one there, you double tap on add social profile, and it's going to then you have, different, like, let me just show you that one.
Add text field is editing.
Okay, there's the edit field where you can type what it is, but go to the left.
Twitter button.
And notice we double tap on that.
Text field is editing. Meet Zoom. Amazon.
Go back up here.
Dictate. Amazon Alexa. Business Suite. Zoom. Meet. Monopoly Go. Webs. Facebook. Selected. Facebook. Flickr. LinkedIn. MySpace. Sina Weibo.
All kinds of social options. It's also possible, folks, to tell SIRI about the relationships. You don't even have to go into the contact card. If you've already created a contact, I could say, I just summon SIRI and I say to her, Sarah Potok is my sister or whatever. You just would say that. And then it also remembers that, it stores it in the contact for future use. So if you don't want to have to go into the contact card and do it that way, that is, and it also works with nicknames too. Well, you haven't even seen the nickname field yet. I'm going to show you where it is here in a moment, but it is true with nicknames. If you tell so-and-so, if you tell SIRI, like, call me whatever, it's going to remember that as a nickname in the nickname field. And where that nickname field is, we just finished looking at the social profiles, but
add custom service Sina Wiba, MySpace.
I got to get out of that because I don't want to. Oh, I'll just pick one here. We'll just say we're going to do Facebook. Okay, but we're not really going to. But if I keep going now to the right where we are here, let's see what we have now. Is social.
Add instant message. Notes.
There's notes. And by the way, the notes are private. So if you ever share your contact card, the notes don't get shared with it. Just so you know.
Notes. Text field.
There's the edit field.
Add verification code. Button.
All right, that's for contact key we're not even going to get into that right now, but if you're a journalist or a political analyst, you might want to know about that.
Add field. Button.
Now, notice this add.
Cancel.
All right, let's look at just a few of these.
Add prefix. Phonetic first name, pronunciation first name, middle name, phonetic middle name, phonetic last name, pronunciation last name, maiden name, suffix, nickname, job title, department.
Look at all these different choices. You can add about, I'm going to hit cancel on that, but you can add these things about your contacts if you so choose. So that's where nickname is, that's job title, all of these different things, depending on how much you want to really, really, do with your contacts, and maybe for some it matters or for others it doesn't, but maybe you've also seen somebody else's and you say, well, why do they have job title? I can't find that anywhere. Well, it's there. You just have to go to the add field option, which is near the bottom, and once we pass that and we pass add field, the other option that we have that I want you to see to the right here is
add to list button. Add to
and that's the last one, add to list. And what this is going to do is it's going to let me add this contact to one of my other lists. Remember, I told you I have a TTJ list. I can look at my
family, TTJ.
And so I can pick one of my existing lists and I can add them to it. It does not give me the option to add a new list here. So if I wish to do that first, I need to add the new list first, and then I can add this contact to that list. Or I can create the contact and add it to the list later, because that is possible to do. But when I'm done with all this information that I've entered, at the top right, remember, I'm going to find
done button.
The done button. Notice that it's no longer grayed out. We've entered some information here. I can add that by just hitting done. It saves it to my contacts and it syncs it across all my devices. Or at the upper left,
cancel button
is cancel, because we're actually going to cancel test subject. He doesn't get to be in my contacts today.
Cancel alert. Are you sure you want to discard this new contact?
And I'm sure he didn't make the cut.
Discard changes.
So we could say discard or keep editing. I'm going to discard changes. But that is how it is to create a contact. And if we pick a contact that we've already created, that we have in here, let's say I want to call who I want to pick one that I know has lots of choices in what they have. So let me go back to, okay, well, let's just look for one here. Okay, I think I have a customer or a student, or I'm just trying to find something that I know has, well, I'll tell you what, we'll go up here. I'm close to the K, I'm close to the M's. We'll go to Cliff, because he's got all kinds of info in his contact. So when I double tap on his name, at the top left, I have the back button. Starting to see a pattern there, right? And what's going to be at the top right? Anybody have a guess? The answer is the edit button, where you can edit this existing contact. Listen.
Edit button.
That's at the top right. Top left is back.
Back button.
But if we swipe right,
edit Cliff Antonio Miller Sr.
shows his nickname, shows his full name. And then what I also have, if I go to the right,
message button.
I can send him a message.
iPhone call button.
I can call his iPhone.
Video button.
Do a FaceTime call.
Mail button.
Can send him an email.
Pay button.
Send him money with Apple Pay.
Contact photo and poster shared by Cliff.
Notice it says the contact photo and poster are shared by Cliff. I explained to you already that if they have a contact poster, they can share it with you, so it becomes your photo for them.
iPhone +1.
There's his phone number. We won't let you hear all of that, but there's his actual phone number. I can also double tap on that to call him that way.
FaceTime.
And then we have
FaceTime video call, FaceTime audio call,
FaceTime audio, FaceTime video.
iCloud.
And there's an email address, an iCloud email address that he has listed there. It reads that. I can double tap it to send him a message. I apologize. I'm not sure why the puppy is barking all of a sudden so emphatically. She must have seen something outside or heard something. I don't know.
iCloud. Clifton.
There's another couple of email addresses for him. And then he's got a LinkedIn profile there. And I can, at the bottom of this,
Send message.
can send him a message.
Share contact. Button.
And I can share a contact. I'll talk more about sharing in a moment.
Add to favorites.
I can add him to favorites.
Add to emergency contacts.
Add him to emergency contacts.
Block caller.
We can block the caller if we're tired of hearing from him.
Add to list. Button.
Add to list.
Contact photos.
And that's really going to be it. Now, what I would also want to point out here, I'm just going to go back with the upper left.
iCloud. Clifton at iCloud back button.
Okay, there's the back button. Now, one of the things I want to point out is you saw an option there that is called share contact. And if you choose to share the contact, one of the concerns that people used to have, and it was a valid concern, and we used to talk about it a lot, is that you may not want everybody to have all of your contact details. So if you go into my contact name, I have, my wife, my kids, their birthdays, all of these different things, home address, home phone, tons of information in my personal contact card. But if I'm sharing a contact card with a business connection, I may not want to share all of that personal information. And so what I did years ago is I created a separate contact card for the business. I called it TTJ Tech Services. And it lacks all of that extra stuff, the personal stuff, right? It just has my work phone number and my work email and website, those basic things. Since that time, what Apple has added is a really cool feature that when you share a contact, you can actually deselect the things that you don't wish to share. Instead of having to create two separate contacts, you can actually just use one contact and then you can select or deselect anything you don't wish to share with an individual person at a given time. So if I don't want to share and I think some of them are already deselected by default. And if you want to share them, you have to add them to the selection, or you can hit select all. Let's show you what that looks like. I'll turn the volume back up there a little bit. And I'm going to go down to my own contacts here.
Matthew Grace.
Okay, down near the bottom.
Add show medical ID. Contact photo.
Let's see. Share contact.
Add to share contact button.
And what happens then?
Contact heading. Done button.
There's a done button.
Selected. Logo other. Selected. First name. Matthew.
The photo is selected. My first name is selected.
Selected. Middle name.
Middle name is selected.
Selected. Nickname.
All these things are selected. Right now, the company is not selected. Listen.
Company. TTJ Tech Services.
But if I select it.
Selected. Company. TTJ Tech Services.
And you keep going.
Selected. iPhone. Selected. Home. Selected. Work. Selected. Home. Selected. Work.
Some of those are email and some of them are phone numbers.
Selected. iCloud. M. Selected. Email. Selected. Other. Select.
Got lots of emails. But we can go home page. There's my website.
//www.ttjtech.biz.
And if we keep going, there's going to be some more that are not selected. My home address is not selected. Listen, I even have custom home pages in here.
Selected. Home. https://www.
That's another home website that's
selected. Apple Podcasts. https://podcast.apple.com/podcast.
That's my podcast URL. My address is not selected.
Birthday, October.
My birthday and my anniversary are not selected. And my family members are not selected by default. But I could easily select any of these that I want to select. And then when I'm finished, I just hit the done button.
Done button. Close button.
And now it brings up the share options.
Close contact card. Shared info. Matthew's iPad 3. Shared info button.
And it shows me the shared info, but then I can choose what I want to share with.
Jessica, Kylie, Cliff, Carson, Volbrecht.
These are sharing suggestions. I'll explain all of this in a moment.
Fred, Mom, Monica, Pat, Merck, Kayla, Suzanne.
Eventually, we're going to get
AirDrop,
to the
messages, mail, LG Fit, Webs, more. New quick note, save to files, edit actions.
All right, and let's close this.
Close.
At the top, there's a close button. So let me explain to you what we just saw. Once I selected what I wanted to share and deselected what I didn't, I hit the done button and it brings up what is called a share sheet. And share sheets are going to be very important throughout your use of all Apple products, really, because they contain ways to share whatever information you're working with, right? And sometimes that may be as simple as, sending a photo via message or email. Sometimes it may be about opening a document or a photo or some kind of file in another app that you have installed. Sometimes it's about printing it. Sometimes it's about saving it to iCloud Drive, your Files app. And so you have all kinds of options. So the share sheet is essentially divided into 3 sections, the top of which is your list of sharing suggestions. These are based upon people that you frequently and recently communicated with, or people that it suspects are relevant. For example, if you have a photo in your library, it may suggest another person because that person is in the photo, right? So if it knows who the person is, it may try to get you to share the photo with that person. But you have this list of sharing suggestions at the top, and then you have your next section, which has things like AirDrop. AirDrop is, we mentioned last week, close proximity file sharing, peer-to-peer, like 2 people in the same room or same house, that are physically close to each other. But then you have messages and mail, and it just depends on the kind of file that you have, right? If I have a photo that I'm trying to share, it may suggest that I share it with or open it in, a photo editor app that I have installed. It may suggest that I open something in Facebook or in Apple Pages or Apple Books or a recipe app. And again, it just depends on the file type. And then the bottom section is going to have your print options. So you can print out whatever it is you're trying to share. It will have your copy option, your save to files, and all of these kinds of things. So you have a lot of choices depending on what kind of file it is that you're trying to share. This was a contact card, so there weren't too many choices. But we will spend more time on share sheets later on in the course. That gives you, though, an overview of how to create a contact, how to edit a contact. And again, remember, it's not that we've learned that you can't, I could spend hours going over every one of those fields with you. This is what they do. You're not going to remember that. You probably aren't going to remember everything you heard today, but you have the recordings you can listen back to. And we're going to really put this into practice on Wednesday at our experience lab, which is going to be so much fun. And so we can play with this stuff together. But the real goal and the whole idea here is to show you the kinds of things that this is capable of while teaching a voiceover fundamental. And that voiceover fundamental today, of course, happens to be tabbed apps. Okay, the clock app is present on every one of your iPhones, and it allows you to create, and your iPad, by the way, and I guess the Mac too, but it allows you to set alarms, to set timers, and to use a stopwatch. And you can do the timers and the alarms with SIRI as well, but we have an app for it here. We can do a stopwatch, and we even have a world clock, so we can see the time in different time zones. So if I open the clock app,
weather, map, remind, clock, 3:21 p.m.
First thing it does is tell me the current time.
Clock, edit, button.
The bottom of this is in tabs. That's why we're demonstrating it. Tabbed app, okay? Tab bar on the bottom. Let's touch the bottom left.
Tab bar, world clock, tab, 1 of 4.
Go to the right.
Selected, alarms, stopwatch, timers, tab, 4 of 4.
So you've got 4 tabs. I happen to be in the alarms tab. Where would you guess that the add button is going to be to add a new alarm? The answer, in case you thought it's going to be at the upper right,
add button.
You would be correct. It is in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. When we have the alarm tab selected, we know there's an add button at the upper left to add a new alarm.
Edit button.
Look at what's at the upper left. There's an edit button to edit the existing alarms. All the middle of the screen has all my existing alarms. So I can 3-finger swipe up or down if I've got a lot of them. Here's an alarm for about almost 9 o'clock in the morning.
8:58 a.m. Alarm. Switch button. Off. Double tap to toggle setting.
It's
Swipe
just
up or down to select a custom action, then double tap to activate.
It's just a toggle. I can double tap it to turn it on, double tap it to turn it off, swipe up or down for a custom action because
Delete. Edit.
maybe I want to edit the alarm.
Activate. Default.
And editing the alarm would allow me not only to change the time of it, but also to choose the sound for the alarm and to choose whether or not I want to snooze, like whether or not I want to have the ability to be able to snooze the alarm. And also I can even name the alarm. So you have a lot of choices in here, and you can pick different sounds. You can pick music for your alarms, but there's a lot you can do here. And again, the reason I'm showing you this is because it's another example of a tabbed app. If we wanted to change this and use the stopwatch,
Tab bar. Selected. Alarms. Stopwatch. Tab.
now the top of the screen at the left
0 seconds.
shows the remaining time.
Lap. Dimmed. Button.
The lap button,
Start. Button.
there we can start.
Page 1 of 2. Digital stopwatch.
And we-
Adjustable.
No, we have 2 pages because,
Page 2 of 2. Analog stopwatch. Tab.
and that's it. We can either have an analog or a digital, but I can start the stopwatch right now.
Start. Button. Clock. 0.34 seconds.
And it's counting up because I'm using a stopwatch. I can tap there,
5.82 seconds.
see how much time's gone by,
8.63 seconds.
and we'll stop here
But stop. Button. Start.
and let's see what we got.
13.60 seconds.
Took us 13.6 seconds to say all that. And if we want to reset it,
Reset. Button.
there's-
Lab. Dim. 0 seconds.
and there it is. Okay. So that's how easy it is, but that's the stopwatch tab. So again, when you find an app that has tabs, all it is a matter of touching the tab bar, picking the tab you want by swiping left or right, and then double tapping on whichever tab you wish to use. And again, the rest of the screen changes. There are many times when you're going to find add buttons in the upper right, edit buttons or back buttons in the upper left, but not always. Notice that this stopwatch tab had a completely different look on the rest of the screen, right? I could have a lap, I could start the stopwatch, and I could reset it whenever I had, an accumulated time. So you just need to explore by touch, by swipe, and by trying these different things, but also be paying attention to the patterns. If I would expect there to be an add button in a certain tab, chances are it's probably going to be at the upper right. Don't forget to check the rotor, because there are many times options in the rotor that we will find that are additional, like you heard that my alarm, if I double tap it, it's just going to turn it on or turn it off. But if I use the rotor, I can delete it, and I can even edit it if I want to change the sound, or if I want to change the time of it, or give it a name, or even a repeat, because you can set recurring alarms that automatically go off at the same time every day. And so there's so much that we can learn just by exploring. And today we've talked, among other things, primarily about tabbed apps, and how these apps that have these tabs across the bottom of the screen are going to allow us to do different things in each tab. We find the tab and we double tap it, and then we look at the rest of the screen by touch or tap or whatever, and we find the information that we want. And thanks to all of you for joining us. God bless you, and have a great rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow or Wednesday, whenever you join us.
Thanks for joining today's session. Didn't get your question answered? Have an additional comment or feedback? Email us info@ttjtech.biz or info@stiritup.com. And remember, stir is spelled with a U. That's STURITUP.com. Or check out our websites for additional resources. That's ttjtech.biz or stiritup.com. And remember, subscribe to the newsletter when you're there. That way, you don't miss out on any upcoming announcements or events. Thanks for joining us. God bless, and see you next time.